Good afternoon and welcome back. We are here again with you, and today we have something a little bit different to start with for you. It's, we are the medical conspiracy, and most of our interests are in the health and what to do about different aspects of health, but most cases are involving cancer because that's what we have always been part of, the cancer. Well, I don't know if we were part of the cancer group, but we were trying to fight what was wrong in the cancer industry. Anyway, but the main aspect is really freedom. Freedom, we looked at freedom to choose what kind of treatment you want because it's, after all, your life in your body. But freedom has different aspects. And one other thing that is up to date now since the upcoming election is freedom of choice in the political field. We do have a two-party system, and what good is that? It's a very good question, and I've always answered that it is not good at all.
two wings of the same bird.
Yeah, I agree that in Italy is ridiculous. The condition in Italy is ridiculous. So many parties that you have no idea what the heck is going on. But even with two parties, you have no idea what the heck is going on. So there you go. But I still think that two parties are not enough, and especially when what's happening, obviously, is the fact that they are appearing to be enemies. They actually are not. So we need something. We need something that to help the situation. And we were contacted this week by somebody involved with the third party organization, and
free and equal .org, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we decided, yes, why not? We should have a discussion on that subject. We should have a representative of the group to come on and talk to us about it, because there is an upcoming debate and people should listen to it. I really don't know anything about the different parties, and I don't know alternative parties, and I don't know anything about the individuals, but what I know is that people should have the freedom to choose. And as I told you before in the past, my stand on what is going on right now is the election should be none of the above. So none of the two available. That's why it fits into what I've been saying for a long time, to have and show you that there is an alternative. And so we have with us a guest. His name is Josh Tolley, and he's part of this group, and he's going to give you all the details of what is going to happen next week on Tuesday. There is a...
Actually, Josh has his own show on Genesis, correct?
Right.
Monday through Friday. You got the 9 to 11 slot, right?
Yes, sir, I do, and it's a pleasure being here.
Does that mean you're taking the place of the Power Hour?
No, they run a number of different channels on their system. They have 4 channels. I'm on channel 1 from 9 to 11.
Oh, okay.
And the Power Hour, I think, is on channel 2 or 3. I'm not sure. But no, the Power Hour is still there.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering. Okay, so we're happy to have this person knowledgeable on the third party and on the upcoming debate, so they can give you all the information you need, because I believe you need to listen to the debate and see what other people are offering, and we need to do something to change our bad situation.
But you can't get too close, because they'll put you in handcuffs and they'll take you away.
You want to talk about what happened too?
I would love to.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for having me. You bring up a really good point that you don't know the difference. And I think if a lot more people didn't know the difference between the political parties, we would have a lot better results. Because what it seems like right now is we vote for political parties as if we're supporting our favorite sports team. We go into the ballot box. We don't know anything about the candidates because we don't take the time to investigate. And we just see, oh, they have a D and they have an R, and I'm going to vote for them. And that process has hindered freedom in so many ways, especially health. I mean, when you look at America's life expectancy, we're falling, yet we're the wealthiest nation on the planet. And you would think, well, that doesn't make any sense at all until you realize the politicians on both sides of this, and Randy, you did a great job calling it, one bird with two wings. I always refer to it as one coin with two sides.
Sick bird.
Yeah, sick bird. And you look at these administrations, and I'm not trying to play political parties here, but when you look at them, they even keep some of the same members. Like there's people who used to be leaders in the Monsanto organization.
Here we go.
Well, see, exactly. And they're now part of the Bush administration, and the same guys are part of the Obama administration, and the same guys were part of Bill Clinton's administration. And you start thinking to yourself, well, this isn't free. This isn't what America was founded on.
Goldman Sachs.
Exactly. And you brought up a great point also, Doc, when you're talking about Italy. I mean, think about Italy. They have a lot of different parties. But look, if you look at the United States of America, we have over 300 million people in this nation, yet we get to choose between two? I mean, if we rewound the clock 150 years, our population would be a fraction of what it is, and you would have dozens of people to choose from. So there's obviously something wrong. So the Free and Equal organization, which is freeandequal.org, they decided, okay, well, we need to have a debate, one that's going to get real media attention and allows these other candidates to have a voice. And, it really doesn't matter so much the parties that they're with. More so what matters is the voice that they represent. And when people think there's only two individuals that can represent all of America and we have to continually choose the lesser of two evils, the only thing that can happen is the continuation of evil. So we do have Rocky Anderson from the Justice Party. We have Jill Stein from the Green Party. We have Gary Johnson from the Libertarian Party and Virgil Goode from the Constitution Party. Now, more important than the party they're with is the message they present. And this allows people the opportunity to hear that message, to actually realize, wait a second, there's more than two options on the ballot? Because right now, most people don't know Gary Johnson is on 48 out of the 50 states. He'll probably be on all 50 by the time we get to Election Day. And in reality,
I knew that because we're in Oklahoma, so that one stood out to me because we're one of the states that he's not on the ballot.
Well, yeah, and they're in litigation right now to try to get him on that ballot. But even if he's not on in two states, that still means 48 states have the opportunity to vote for somebody other than the two candidates that are on the mainstream media's ticket.
Right.
And in reality, that's all they really need to win. So there's this prevalent idea that a third party could never win, yet with Gary Johnson and Jill Stein's on 87% of all ballots. If people who weren't happy with the system realized that there were options for them, then the monopoly would end. And that's exactly what's happening with this debate. The debate is October 23rd, 8 p.m. Central, and the media coverage is just phenomenal. Larry King is going to be the moderator.
Yeah,
I know.
Oh, really? Larry King?
Yeah, Larry King. Al Jazeera is going to cover it. Russia Today is going to cover it. There's over a dozen news agencies that are covering this thing. There's still, as I went on your show today, there's still whispers about C-SPAN might jump on board as well. So it's definitely something that people can watch regardless of where they are in the country. If there's not a local affiliate carrying the coverage, they can always go to freeandequal.org and watch a live stream there. And there's expected to be up to 1,000 people in the audience. I know that they're going to have a pre-debate kind of special almost with political commentators, including myself, Ben Swan, Tom Hartman, and a couple others, to represent the broad variety of voices out there in America. Huh. So it's really something that people should embrace and get behind, because we all know that there needs to be change. Definitely. And when an organization steps up to try to provide it, it's important that we help them out.
I think so. Who is speaking the question? Who is asking the question?
Larry King.
Larry King is asking the question, so I assume the questions are already preset.
So he won't be accused of having a liberal bias.
Well, no, that's great.
I'm kidding.
That's a great thing, because the viewers out there actually get to select the questions. You can go to freeandequal.org, and there's even hashtags you can put on Twitter. And I think it's hashtag ask this question, Larry, or Larry ask the question, or something like that. Because even traditional media is starting to realize that we
got a break coming up. We got a break. We are going to be back from the break and continue this.
OrionTalkRadio.com.
Okay, we're back from the break and back with Josh.
And I forgot my manners.
He has to say something.
I forgot my manners last segment. I want to welcome everybody to OrionTalkRadio.com and Micro 1650 in Tonawanda, New York. Special hello to all our listeners on Spreaker.com. We've broken the 1,300 mark in terms of followers, which for us is pretty significant. We've also got a little crowd in the chat room. Want to thank you guys for coming. Vincent's actually helped us get some links out to the show over the week on our Facebook page, and we appreciate it. Also, if you're listening on the streams, we do have a chat board. We'd like to have you by. Just go to medicalconspiracy.com and hit the listen button. We've got 6 different ways to listen. Got the pop-up player and some updates that have been made on the page. So anyway, that's enough. Glad you're here, and back to you.
Let's back to the issue here. What are you saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, when we look at the problem that we have and we look at the issues that are really important to people, what I think is really fascinating is we have this illusion that there's so much that divides us. You know, you have your Republican neighbor and your liberal coworker, and you think that they're actually divided. But when you actually take away the initials after people's names, when you take away the candidates by name, and you just start asking questions, it's amazing how many people just want to be free. And if freedom becomes the number one issue, then all the other candidates who want to hamper that, to hinder the spreading of freedom and the restoration of the Constitution, would lose by default. So what's really important is that the people take back control of the political conversation. And that conversation impacts all areas of life. I mean, we see from the medical industry, how absurd is it that the big drug companies get to be on the approval board for the FDA, and then they get to say, well, okay, it's going to cost you $500,000 for an application to get a drug tested. Meanwhile, there are great health professionals out there who are coming up with actual cures who can't get their drug past the gates. And then we run around with signs that say, well, I support Obama or I support Romney. And here is Obama, who it was revealed he's partnering with these same large corporations. I mean, here's a candidate that's supposed to be the voice of progressive policy. Yet he's establishing a system where a large corporation gets to control the healthcare industry. So even if you are a progressive, you'd have to look in the mirror and say, wait a second, that's a little hypocritical, isn't it?
I think on Inauguration Day, they bring them in for a debriefing to let you guys know who is really running the country. And this is what you're going to do, Mr. President. You know, I don't know. I'm kind of cynical, but...
Well, I don't think it's cynical. I think it's accurate. And when you look at who the major backers for Obama are and who the major backers for Romney are, you start seeing some common names. And then when you see personalities who have been in these administrations, I mean, for goodness sakes, Rumsfeld goes back to Ford. I mean, he's been in D.C. since Ford, the Bush family,
and Several Pharmaceuticals too.
Oh, right, exactly. So
aspartame, all of that. He was connected to the aspartame approval.
The same people have been at this table for far too long, and as long as they get to control the doorway to that table, they're always going to control what the rest of us get off of it in terms of crumbs that fall. And that process is what needs to end. And a lot of people are going to say about this debate, well, you know, in reality, Josh, even though Gary and Jill might be on the ballot and mathematically it's plausible that they could win, in reality it's not going to happen that way, so why even bother? And what I have to say to that is, well, you bother to let everybody else know around you that things are changing. When millions of people start realizing, wait a second, I'm not voting for any of these guys either, and that movement continues to grow, it might not change this year, but the mindset of the voter base will change. So next thing you know, you have independents running for city council, for county board. What amazes me is how we only get politically active every 4 years, yet the last time I voted in a primary, there were 5 spots that were completely uncontested. All you'd have to do is sign up and you won. So we have this idea, well, we can complain about what's happening on a national level, but if you really want to protect yourself and your community, we have to get back to that local level and get active. And we've kind of bought into this lie, and I liken it to being on an aircraft. When you get on a plane, the flight attendant says, okay, if we're going to go down, the oxygen masks deploy, secure your mask first before you help the people around you, even if it's your kid, because you're no help to anybody if you're dead. And that theory holds true in politics. What they've told us is, though, you can't have a good life if you don't have a good city. And you can't have a good city until you have a good county. You can't have a good county until you have a good state. You can't have a good state until you have a good nation. And now we can't even fix the nation until we get a global political system going. And in reality, exactly. And in reality, the opposite is the truth. It works just like that oxygen mask. If you secure freedom at home first, in your community first, through county sheriffs that uphold the Constitution, through county board and city council, it can actually act as a buffer between you and the federal government. Yeah. So it's important.
True.
But I don't understand why people, and when you said the thing that really hit home, when you said, well, it's not going to change, so why bother? Okay, strangely enough, that's exactly what I have heard for years and years. Nothing is going to happen. It's not going to change. People don't want you. The AMA doesn't want you, doesn't want what you're doing. And the alternative don't want you. So why bother? See, they're giving you so much trouble. They're attacking you, they're chasing patients away. They're doing, so why bother? Why bother? Because this changes everything. It will resolve a lot of problems. That's why I can't give up. And the same thing about people running for alternative parties. They cannot give up.
Well, exactly. You know, I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees. And we're at this very unique point in human history where we have to decide, do we want to move forward and live as livestock or as zoo animals, or do we want freedom? And recently on my show, I covered a story where 47% of the American population, according to a recent poll, is okay with the 30,000 drones that are going to be above your head. What that says to me is most people don't want freedom. And when we lose the desire to want it, the game is over. So what we need to do is realize why freedom is so important, why we need to continue to pursue it, even if we're going to lose, even if it's going to be a war with many battles. And then also realize, just like cattle, if the cows in the field went up to the fence and said, wait a second, I weigh 2,200 pounds. I bet you I could push over this little piece of barbed wire, and all the cows got together, there would be nothing that could stop them. But we've been so convinced that the two-party system is so ingrained and in place that there's no way 300 million people can defy the will of less than 1,000 people who orchestrate these two parties. It's just absurd.
I know it is. And I kept saying, well, power is in number. Use it. And of course, they tried with but they didn't try hard enough. See, with the Occupy movement, they tried, and then the police got nasty. Those were orders and everything. And what did people do? Everything went into nothing because people gave up. People realized we cannot change the way it is, so that's the way it is. We cannot change it. And freedom, it's not that they're okay with the situation, but they just don't want to take the responsibility of fighting. I never said that fighting was easy. Right.
You absolutely nailed it. And we saw the same thing with the Tea Party. Now, again, I'm not trying to choose sides, but in reality, it was two groups of people. When they started, they had legitimate gripes, and then they were both taken over by the people who were controlling the conversation in the first place.
Is that a break coming up?
We got a break coming.
Okay. Don't forget what you were saying.
All right.
Free speech guaranteed. You're listening to the Orion Talk Radio Network.
Okay, we're back from another break, and we were, before the break again interrupted Josh from explaining the situation. So go ahead.
Well, that's the danger of having another talk show host on your show. I'm used to it. So, but anyway, what I was saying was, when the Occupy movement started, it was started because of real people being genuinely upset about the situation that they found themselves in. When the Tea Party movement started, way in the beginning, it was the same thing. It was real people being genuinely upset about the things that were being presented to them. And then what happened is the same systems that they were angry about came in and divided that again, take control of the conversation again, because as you were pointing out, Doctor, so many people don't want to take responsibility and step up and actually lead. They just want somebody to do it for them. Well, when a politician or a political group or a political action committee or a party comes in and says, hey, we understand your plight, what you should really say is, wait a second, you are the exact same people I was fighting against. Because if we rewound the clock, you would notice that the Tea Party people 5 years ago were warning against a guy named Mitt Romney. Now all of a sudden, the conservative media is saying, oh, no, this is the right guy. So, the red flags are everywhere. People really have to do something, and that's what this debate is really about, to let the establishment know, you know what, you might control November, but November is just the beginning for us. We've realized the destruction that your system has put us through. We realize how corrupt this system is. I mean, more and more people, regardless of political affiliation, if you ask them, say, oh, yeah, politicians are untrustworthy. Yeah, and if you took away the political party, Washington, D.C. only has a 12% approval rating. That means 88% of us don't like what they're doing. So how is this even possible that they can then convince us to vote for the very people none of us like?
Well, there aren't any choices, and people are afraid to start a riot.
I was going to say, though, but what I'm hearing more and more right now is that nobody that I've heard anything from is really voting for anything. They're voting against one thing or the other, and they're either voting against welfare or they're voting against welfare for the rich.
Well, and of course, then they wrap that in the belief that it's the lesser of two evils. And I get that all the time, too. Well, you have to vote for the lesser of two evils.
And religion, religion should never even touch politics. But look at it today. People are voting against their own self-interest in the name of religion, in a lot of cases, anyway.
Well, see, that's a little tangential, but I think it's a good tangent to go down. Religion, like anything else, can be corrupted and used by the people who want to control. Religion isn't responsible for wars. Corrupt leaders use religion to move people towards wars.
Yeah,
money's not responsible for war. Corrupt leaders use money to lead people to war. So what you have to do is you have to recognize what weapons the system can use against you, and then establish the fact that if a weapon can be used against you, it can be taken away and used for your benefit. And we see that in this push to divide the 99% from the 1%. Everybody says, well, the 1% is evil. 1% of this nation is over 3 million people. 3 million people did not meet at Denny's yesterday to conspire against us. What they wanted to do is they wanted to keep the people without money separated from the people with money, because if you and I ever realize that the corrupt politicians, the 0.001%, are actually running this show, we could team up with our business owner, quote-unquote, wealthy neighbor and start buying more local radio stations, start buying more billboards. But as long as they get me to hate him, we won't team up together. And that's the corrupt strategy.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we look at this whole idea of lesser of two evils, even if you believe in evil for real or if it's just an expression for you, it still holds true that I would rather have evil reign without my consent than have it be in existence and have blood on my hand on even its least of deeds. And why on earth, if we're going to call something evil, do we believe that the lesser evil is going to be the lesser evil? Wouldn't evil, by its very definition, want to disguise the greater as the lesser to pull an evil trick and become the greater? I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
But see, because we don't have any choices, there are only two parties, then you say, well, I have to choose, so I'll choose what I think is the lesser evil. But what choice is that? That's not a choice.
It's not a choice, and that's why this debate and getting involved in your local politics is so vitally important. And like I said in the first segment, when I recently voted at my local primary, there were 5 seats. All you had to do was sign up, and you would have won. So this whole idea that, well, there's nothing we can do. Of course there is. And that complaint is true in county after county after county. There are counties that are actually asking people, hey, would you please run for office? Yet we've been so convinced that it all has to be done on a national level. And in reality, It's just a myth. It's like a magic trick. They want you to focus on the national level. They want you to focus on that one target so you don't realize there's 900 other targets that you could actually be taking aim at and winning.
Okay, but the only thing is here is that everybody has to do it. Because if only one group does and sends somebody in Washington, this has happened before, I'll discuss the example. They've sent somebody after fixing the local and send it to Washington, and he is up against all these crooks. He can't do anything.
Well, you're absolutely right, but the idea of sending them to Washington to fix it is the wrong idea.
Well, no, they eventually go to Washington, but if there have to be other people that go to Washington from a whole bunch of states, so together they can do something to fix. Because if they are not, they cannot do anything. I mean, in Arkansas sent somebody in Congress to Washington. Oh, boy, something burned. Sent somebody to Washington. It was called a Sheriff Hot Dog. And he had fixed Tommy Robinson, and he had fixed a lot of things that were wrong in the Little Rock area. He done a good job. He was a sheriff. He had done a good job. Well, they say he fixed the area. He can be sent to Washington and fix what's wrong. And he went there, but he was the only one, and everybody else wasn't on the same wavelength, the same mentality was not like he was. And what they do, they railroaded him and totally ruined his career. And he had to go back and he's no longer even in local politics. He cannot do it alone. What I am saying is he cannot do it alone. Everybody has to do it. Everybody has to fix their local. So when they eventually get representatives that go to Washington, all of those are different.
Yes. Because what we see is even with let's take the Ron Paul supporters, for example, and I love Ron Paul, but even if we would have elected him and he would have got on the ballot, it's not as if we elect a dictator or a king. He still has to get through over 500 other elected officials.
And lobbyists.
And lobbyists, exactly, to get things passed. So you can't send one person to Washington, sit back and think, okay, well, they got it from here. We don't have to do anything. You have to put your own oxygen mask on first. And there have been examples in Montana, New Mexico, Arizona, where constitutionally elected sheriffs and county boards have said to the feds, if you step foot in this county, we will arrest you. And that is victory. If that could go from one county to 10 counties in a state and then 40 counties in a state, and all of a sudden you have a state that's still in the United States, I mean, we're not talking about secession or anything, but just a state that says, you know what? We're done listening to you. And then that message spreads. That's a possible fight to fight. That's like starting your own fire to fight a fire, as opposed to sending a squirt gun to Washington to take on a forest fire.
Because otherwise, if he's alone, or he or she is alone, and I really believe that the thing of Gifford was suspicious. Okay? Anyway.
Well, that's an entire topic in and of itself.
I know. I mean, they find a way to get rid of you if you want to do something in Washington and make a change. If you're alone, you are going to end up either dead or almost. Okay?
I think we need lobbying reform, definitely, though.
We do need lobbying reform. And one of the reforms that we need is the people to realize that they can lobby as well. I mean, and you can lobby in a number of different ways. You can lobby with your votes, you can lobby with your money, and you can lobby by showing up and saying, hey, we're not going to do this anymore. Because even if we look at Washington, the Tea Party supposedly had a great victory 10 years ago, or not 10 years ago, 2 years ago. They sent them to D.C., and most of those quote-unquote Tea Party reformers became just as corrupt as everybody else. But I got to run. It was wonderful talking to you. Watch the debate, October 23rd, freeequal.org. My site is joshtolly.com, JOSHTOLLEY.com, and I look forward to talking to you guys again. It was a blast.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate it.
Okay. Is a break coming up. Something that I wanted to talk to you and discuss.
And we're back.
Yeah, we're back. Josh had to go. He said he'll talk to us again, maybe. Maybe. I hope we didn't chase him away with our stand on the lobbying. But anyway.
Well, I don't see how that would be that controversial
I'm totally
a topic.
against lobbying because lobbying today is based on money and that ruins everything. Anyway, if you change the lobbying, but the only lobbying that is effective today is the money, and that's not a good thing. But anyway, so we just discussed why we at the Medical Conspiracy would have somebody that is discussing politics and changing the way, because we need a change, just like the Occupy movement. There is need for a change. We cannot have things continue the way they are, and we cannot allow in any field, including the politics. Of course, the politics is affecting what's happening in everything else, because Washington steps in. If a guitar company can be raided by Homeland Security and a little small operation like ours that is really successful at treating cancer, though, but a small operation can be raided and hounded by FDA, then you know there is something wrong in Denmark. No, it's not in Denmark, in our Denmark, in Washington. So it's definitely something rotten, a lot rotten in Washington. So we need to do something to fix it. You cannot allow things to continue rotting because they're only going to get worse. And I know it's not easy to fight back. Don't I know? It's not easy, but it can be done. It can be done. It must be done. Anyway, one thing that I wanted Josh to discuss, and he didn't get to, is what happened to Jill Stein, and one of the candidates. She's the Green Party, correct? Right?
No, actually, yes. Yeah, Green Party. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And she went there to the debate, presidential debate, and she was just there. And they arrested her with the excuse that she was occupying and blocking the traffic or something. And they arrested her. Why? They just arrested her to get her out of the picture. They arrested her and cuffed her and brought her somewhere and cuffed her to a chair with some of her assistants, and they were kept there for 8 hours. Pretty uncomfortable position to be in. And cuffed to a chair for 8 hours. Excuse me? This is not Russia. Not much different to what happened to us. It keeps happening. And we're allowing to happen, and we're not saying anything. We need to put an end to this. We need to fight back, stand up and fight. Don't be afraid to stand up. Join us, fight with us, because if you don't, it's going to be a lot worse. And that's what I keep saying. I don't know if there are so many voices out there telling you how everything that is wrong out there, not just in the medical, and everywhere. We are just the ones that mostly discuss the medical, but there are problems everywhere, and we need to fix it. They're not going to fix themselves. The evil people are not going to disappear. They gain so much. They want to keep it. They are not going to disappear. We have to push them out of the picture.
And there's a whole army of people whose job it is draw a paycheck every month for doing nothing but dividing and conquering.
And they're giving misinformation.
Any potential movement, they are there to divide and conquer and basically neutralize them.
And just anything. And then you have all this massive brainwashing organization and news segment and this massive activity to convince you that what's going on is great for you. Last week, if you remember, we blasted the fact that there was this radio show about these two women talking how great the system was, what great doctors they had, because they were told they had carried the gene for breast cancer and uterine cancer, endocrine cancer, and they were told that the solution was to have mutilation. They call it surgery, but it's mutilation. So I had double mastectomy, have a surgery, hysterectomy. That was the thing to do. And that's it. They were saved because then now they won't get cancer.
But they were lucky. Not everybody is as lucky as they were.
Yeah, because they had these great doctors. They could afford these great doctors. They didn't say, but they implied the Obamacare cannot provide you that. And mind you, I am not for one or the other, but one is worse than the other. And that's why I said, okay, there's got to be something better. That's what I always said, none of the above. There's got to be something better. Is the independent parties, the alternative parties, what you want to call it, are they the answer? I don't know. Let's listen to what the candidates are saying. Is anybody going to ask the right question? I don't know. Is anybody going to ask what are you going to do about FDA abuses? Are you going to do something and put in place legislation? You going to dismantle FDA. FDA should be dismantled. You should not combine a federal organization that looks at drugs and at the same time at food. Those are two different things. You cannot mix the two. They do not follow the same regulation. They should be separate, not the same organization. Drugs are drugs because they're classified as drugs because they alter the physiological functioning of the body. Food does not. Food keeps you alive. It makes you function. Food is not a drug, and it should not be mixed in the same organization. As long as you have a combined Food and Drug Administration, you're going to have gameplay. They're going to try to confuse you. You're going to have attacks on the cherry grower, attacks on the walnuts wholesaler. They're going to have attacks on us. They're going to have attacks on milk farmers. Everybody that is producing something that is natural. Food is food. And it should not be confused with drugs. It cannot be confused with drugs. What the administration is doing is having power on both, is confusing the issue to get what drug companies want. And so that's somebody should ask the question. You're going to do something about FDA, dismantle and separate the responsibility. And what the heck? FDA has an Office of Criminal Investigation. Get real. That is not part of their responsibility. It's just a farce. Anyway, so as I said, last week there was these two either paid for or stupid women, I don't know which was, that claim how great it was what
Maybe
they
both.
did. Well, you know, yeah, I don't know. But let me tell you something. One thing that nobody mentioned is after the hysterectomy, what they use is they use the surgical mesh, which in this case is called transvaginal mesh, okay, to hold the internal organ in place. Otherwise, everything is going to collapse. Okay, great. See, they're such a great job. They are so fortunate. They did such a great job. They didn't tell you, but they did do that. Why didn't they mention the mesh that is usually done while doing the hysterectomy? But sometimes it's done as a separate surgery because that way they can charge you more. And what is the effect of that? Nobody discussed it. Why? Because there is a law firm that is handling a lawsuit, a giant lawsuit against the manufacturer of the surgical mesh, because the surgical mesh has tremendous, horrible side effects. What are they? The two major are get this, okay? The mesh can perforate organs. Perforation of organs. All right, that sounds really good. And the other one is it can be eroded. The mesh can be eroded, and so pieces get lodged into different organs, just like the contraceptive we discussed a couple of weeks ago. So you're putting something that is extraneous to your body into your body, bad things happen, but it's fine. Oh, and guess what? When the mesh eroded and gets lodged in other part of the body, internal organs, other internal organs, what happens? The way it's lodged, just like the what they use for contraceptive, it cannot be removed. In most cases, cannot be removed. It's lodged in a way that if they go in and try to remove it, it will kill the person because it goes a major internal. But guess what? It's so wonderful because they saved you from cancer that you could possibly have developed down the line sometime, possibly, maybe, who knows, because they say you have the gene for that cancer. So you are trading a distant possibility, something that may or may not happen, for a certainty that will kill you. Excuse me, and those people are fortunate. The class action suit, I got emails. I keep getting emails about this class action suit. of the transvaginal mesh. So, it's a royal disaster. But it's great because this patient was saved from cancer.
And a lot of money was made.
Yeah. In ruining your health and saving you from cancer. Which laser medicine could have fixed it with no problem. Yes, granted, we cannot handle all type of cancer, but with the help of the medical, which they refuse to provide, we could have treated anything, any internal organ, totally resolve the cancer problem. No, that's not allowed because you have to have drugs. And we're getting to the end of the first hour see, that's it. That's the music. So we'll discuss the issue of drug companies and what is really happening. What kind of racket you have out there during the second hour.
Don't touch that mouse.
We'll be back.
The medical conspiracy will return in just a moment.